Hi everybody, welcome today to the Bridge GM Green Industry Skills Fair. This is part of the Meet Your Future campaign that Bridge GM run with employers across Greater Manchester. My name is Michelle. I'm an enterprise advisor at Greater Manchester Combined Authority. Today's event includes lots of different workshops and videos. It gives you the chance to hear from people who work in sustainability and the green sector across a wide range of different jobs. And they're going to tell you why it's important that they're green and how you can get involved. There's lots of different types of roles and projects going on across Greater Manchester, focusing on helping us use clean energy, sustainable materials, be better at construction and engineering. And our speakers will also explain what jobs are in demand and top tips for entering work. The Green Industry Skills Fair today is a one-day event, and as I said, part of Meet Your Future. This is a campaign that was launched by the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, in April 2019. Since then, over 50,000 students across Greater Manchester have, just like you, had the chance to gain experiences of the workplace and meet lots of different employers in a variety of different environments. These events have been both virtual over the past year and a bit and face-to-face before that. And they've helped students learn about different roles and careers and gain first-hand experience of the workplace. So this event today, this 11 o'clock event, is a workshop with Joy Woods from ISG, and we're really pleased to have Joy with us. It will cover sort of construction and engineering and how you can work in those sectors if you're interested. As part of the session, you also have the opportunity to complete a couple of activities relating to what you've just learned, and there will be some time at the end for a Q&A. Please use the chat function on the screen to ask any questions that come to mind, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end. Okay, so I'd just like to introduce Joy. She is Senior Sustainability and Social Value Manager at ISG. Thanks, Joy. Looking forward to hearing from you today.
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all well today. So as Michelle said, mainly it's going to be a presentation. I'll tell you a little bit about myself and then we'll go on to do some activities. The roles in construction are really varied, and as you've heard from Andy Burnham this morning, there's a real emphasis and a need for new people to enter our industry, especially those that are passionate about working on sustainable buildings and learning about how they can make the built environment environmentally friendly, essentially, and low carbon. So my presentation today will really introduce a number of roles to you in the construction sector, and given your age at the moment, I'm really going to focus on the roles that people usually enter the sector at. So we'd call them kind of entry-level roles, and then people decide to move on into different roles from those roles. So that's a brief overview of the session. It'll be a bit strange for me because I can only see you through the chat, so please do raise any questions if there's any problems. I'm just going to share my screen now with my presentation. Can you see that? Michelle, can you see that? Can you give me the heads up? I can't see you, so you're going to need to talk.
I'm afraid I can't see it.
All right, okay, bear with me. Let me try again. Oops. Oh, it's hidden behind that bar. Oh, apologies. Bear with me, everybody.
Would you like Bronwyn to share the?
No, it's fine. I've got it now.
Right. Cool.
I've got it now.
Fab. Thanks, Joy.
Can you see that?
I cannot, unfortunately.
Oh!
Sorry.
Can someone, can you hear? Can you see?
Bronwyn, can you try and share it separately, please? We'll have a little bit of a tech problem. We'll get there.
Bear with me.
Okay. Is there a way to do this?
I'm just going to try, apologies, I'm just going to try one last time to share that screen, my love.
Okay.
Can you see?
I can't see that at the bottom, so.
I've just shut it down and reopened it again.
Sure.
Can you see that presentation coming through?
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that. Right.
No, it's not your fault.
Maximize that on your screen.
Yes, I shall do. Right, here we go.
Okay.
Right. So just a bit of an introduction to ISG. ISG is that we're a global privately owned construction company. We're huge, basically, and we're all about building places where people thrive, really. Businesses and people thrive, and creating sustainable communities. So we do lots of different types of construction work, from fitting out buildings like supermarkets to new offices, creating massive technology buildings such as huge Amazon warehouses. We're doing a big project for Netflix. We've just been awarded a huge gigaplant factory for battery creation in the northeast. So lots of different technology related projects, and then construction. So that could be anything from schools to local authority offices, to hospitals, to prisons even. So real variation in different types of construction work. It's not just houses, really. I know Andy Burnham's mentioned the need for new houses, but there's lots of different construction projects and loads of different jobs related to those projects. We employ just short of 3,000 people. And we operate in 24 countries. And I just wanted to mention there are a couple of projects that we've been involved in building that you might have heard of. They're in Greater Manchester, so the Whitworth Art Gallery, the Corn Exchange and the Manchester Velodrome. Lots of others I could mention, but I'm not going to go into too much detail. So here's all the different countries we operate in. It's a really vibrant industry, really exciting, gives you lots of opportunity to challenge, and every project is different. Every construction project is different. It's got different challenges. The main thing that people will say to you about working in construction is every day is different. So there's a lot of variation, and it's quite an exciting and vibrant industry to work in. So this may work through the chat. We'll just have to suck it and see, really. So I wanted you to take a moment to think about what you think a construction site is like. Have you ever been on one? And what do you think it's like? So have just maybe a moment between yourselves to have a think about that, have a chat amongst yourselves, and maybe you could pop some ideas in the chat and we could see what your thoughts are on that. So I'm just gonna, I can't see, I'm just wondering whether I can view the chat whilst presenting. I'm not sure I can.
We'll go through the chat if I think
you can see the chat.
Yeah, no worries.
So has anybody ever been to a construction site? I'd love to hear if you have. Anything coming through on the chat, Michelle?
Not yet.
Right, okay, give you 10 more seconds. Anybody has been, or what do you think it's like? So you might walk past them on the street, or you might see the cranes in the sky when you're in the city centre, for example. What do you think they're like? If you were to go through the door and enter one, what would you expect it to be like? Would it be busy, quiet, kind of messy?
I'd say definitely messy.
Safe, unsafe?
Okay, we've got a couple of things coming through. So
Right.
our students haven't been on a site, but are aware you'd have to wear a hard hat and high-vis clothing. And
Yep.
somebody else saying, hectic, definitely agree with that. Lots of noise, messy, need to wear safety clothes.
Right, okay, fabulous. So some really key points there that are coming through. So thank you. I would say definitely if you ever get a chance to go on a construction site, grasp that opportunity, because it's not like you think it's going to be. So I've now got a video to share with you, which is from one of our sites in Wales. It's called Bromaganac. If I've said that right, my colleague Harriet will be cringing if I've not said it right. But it was a project in Wales. Let's see if we can get this. Oh, I think I've already preloaded it actually. If we can get that to run for you. Can you let me know if you can see that, Michelle?
I can. It's like a drone shot.
So this is an existing school that's being extended in a number of areas. So you can see, I'm going to point out things as the video, playing up, as the video moves on. So you can see there, you've got storage cabins, that yellow cabin there for materials. You've got vehicles and deliveries. That blue item on the left near those two people is it's a piece of kit that lifts up in the air that allows people to work at heights. So the roofers would have been using that. You can see on the roof there, it's a metal roof. There's blocks of insulation. You can see there's lots of scaffolding, there's steel. So that's the steel structure that allows the building to hold its weight, really, of the external materials. Apologies for the delay in the video, but it's actually allowing me to talk through what's happening. So you can see in other parts of that site, there's lots of scaffolding, all those scaffolding poles, which gives us safe access to different areas of the building. And then at the back of the site there, I don't know whether everybody else can see that. Can you see where the seagulls are flying over that? Oh, it's moved on.
I didn't see any seagulls. Oh no.
Oh, did you not see the seagulls? Wait a minute. It's streaming. There we go. So towards the back of the site there, just behind those rugby pitches, when it shifts round, you'll be able to see lots of movement of earth and groundworks. We call that groundworks. So usually we move earth for a number of different reasons, but on this project, I think it was to create those sports pictures you could see at the back. So there's a lot of diggers and muck shifting kind of what we call plants, so large equipment and vehicles that move the soil around essentially. It looks like it's freezing a little bit, apologies. Over here in different areas of the site, again, you can see steel structure going up. You can see all the safe, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but the safe walkways here. The site is very tidy. You can see we've been compacting the foundations here and laying the foundations internal to this building element. And again, you've got another piece of plant here that's used to access high up in the air, high up in the building structure. Oh, I'll just give it another moment because it's freezing quite a lot. This project is probably it's past the foundation stages, it's moved on to the structural frame stages, and later on this project would have moved on to what we call the finishing trades. So some of the more traditional jobs in construction that you might know, like plastering, bricklaying, painting and decorating. So once we get the structure right and we've got the building what we call weatherproof and watertight, then we move on to making the inside fit for use really, and all the electrical elements of the building and the plumbing elements of the building come in. I'm going to stop that now because it's freezing quite a lot, but I can, oops, let's just pause that. I'm just going to come back to my presentation. So has anybody got any questions around that video, the drone video, before we move on, or any comments around that, anything that surprised you or anything interesting you wanted to ask about before we move forward?
I've got a question while we wait for others to come in.
Yeah.
How long would it take for a site to get to that point? So you said it was way before the finishing.
It's a really good question. Every project is very, very different, and we have members of the project team. So ISG has a project team made up of a number of individuals. We'll have a project manager, we'll have someone looking after the finances, the money on the project, called a quantity surveyor, and we would have someone called a planner as well, and their job is to program out the different stages of the work. Every project is completely different. Some projects start and finish within a year. Some projects are huge, multi-million-pound projects, and can take years to develop and complete. So there really isn't a one size fits all, I'm afraid. But on a school project, typically, the pre-construction design stages might last 3 to 4 months, and then you'll have the early works, so the groundworks and the enabling works, which might be another 3 to 4 months, and then you'll have the main construction works, so the steel, the frame and the fit out, which might be anything up to a year to a year and a half on a school project of that size.
Wow.
But they really do differ. Is there anything coming from the chat before?
Yeah, there's sorry, Joey. Yeah, there's one come through. Is there a site manager on these big jobs? I know you're going to talk about.
Yeah, all of our projects will have a project manager and usually a site manager as well. So ISG will have a whole team of people that manage that project and make sure it's safe and operational. The day-to-day running of it is managed, and then underneath the ISG team we will have a whole raft of what we call subcontractors. So we will spend money with other businesses in that area that specialize in a particular trade. So they specialize in one particular thing. So on that project we just saw, Morganac, the steel structure will be delivered by a steel company that we've paid to come and do that work on our behalf. The brickwork will be another company, and the paint and decorating will be another subcontractor. So we don't have all of those trades working directly for ISG. We buy them in. So we shop for them essentially and pay other people to come because they're specialists in their areas. Yes.
Another question from Manor Academy. So the teacher there says 2 of my students have already been to a construction site. So I bet they've been talking about it. What materials are the schools made of? Or is that a really big question?
Oh, it can differ. So it's a really interesting one, and it does link with sustainability and the environment actually. So different materials have different designs have different environmental performance really. So we're building schools and some buildings in the south that are net zero carbon. So that means that they're built in a way that they generate their own electricity from renewable energy. So they have materials and products like solar panels or air source heat pumps. It means that they would be super insulated and airtight. So we would probably use really high performing insulative materials. And in some cases, we might look at timber buildings as well, or timber structures, and that adds another aspect to sustainability. But typically a lot of traditional construction projects are a steel or concrete frame, and then you will put the external on the building. You can use a number of different products. It really does depend on how you want the building to perform and what the client wants the building to look like as well, and how they want it to operate environmentally. So it's usually cladding, which is like a composite material, like a panel. So if you go into Manchester City Centre, you'll see all these kind of metallic buildings. That's called cladding. Or it could be glazing, so big sheets of glass as well. It could be quite traditional and be brick. So we use lots of different materials for lots of different reasons, but the environment does come into play quite a lot on the performance of the building when we choose those materials. I'm conscious of time, so I'm just going to touch more on the environment while we were talking about it. So we've mentioned about being able to design buildings in an environmentally friendly way and help them perform in a low carbon way. So that's not just using renewable energy, but it's making sure they're airtight. We all know that if we have the heating on and we open the window, that heat escapes and we're not kept warm. It's the same principle with our buildings. So we want to keep them really airtight, keep that warm air in that you've paid good money to warm up your buildings for, make them water efficient as well, just like you would run your home really. The less energy you can use, the less carbon you create, and the more cost effective the building is as well. We're also really passionate about using sustainable materials, as I've mentioned, and preventing pollution and reducing waste and recycling on our sites. And also I wanted to mention biodiversity and ecology. So a lot of construction sites, you know, if we're building a site and it was a piece of land that had a lot of ecology on it, or in some cases protected species, so that might be newts, it might be bats, it might be badgers, it might be birds. You know, we have a really we have a legal responsibility and an ethical responsibility to make sure we protect those species, and quite often we will reinstate, we will build other habitats and enhance other habitats or green space locally to make up for that loss of, whether it be trees that have been cut or grassland or by our ecology that's been lost. And that's responsibility of the whole team really. I want to bring it back to careers really. So there are lots of jobs related to environment in construction, my role being one of them, and I get involved in lots of different projects related to environmental stewardship, but it really is everybody's job on site. No matter what your role, you can have kind of an impact on the environmental performance of that site and that building. That's the key message really. So whether it's an entry-level role that I'm going to come on to speak about in a moment, or whether it's kind of somebody that's been in the industry a long time or is doing a particular trade, we've all got a hand in making our buildings and our sites sustainable. Is there any comments in the chat or anything you want me to pick up on, Michelle, before I move on?
No, there's a question that I think we can ask later, but nothing about sustainability at the moment, or you know, what you talk about in terms of ecology at the moment. No.
Okay, cool. So I just wanted to give you a flavour for kind of what it's like on a construction site. So we've seen that little bit of a video, and we perhaps can share some links and share those out afterwards with the schools. For some other sites and other videos you could look at as well. There are lots out there which would give you a better feel for a construction site. So what does a typical day look like? So we start really early, even sometimes before 7 a.m. And so you have to be prepared to be up and out early, basically, if you want to work in construction. So you'll have usually a safety briefing at the beginning of the day, so everybody knows how to work safely. Health and safety is an absolute priority in our industry. Then we'd start work proper at maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then there are a number of breaks in the day. Quite a lot of jobs in construction are quite physical, and there are many jobs that aren't physically demanding, and they're office-based jobs, but most of the trade jobs will have breaks throughout the day, and then there'd be a finish at 4 o'clock, and usually there's an early finish on a Friday as well, which is kind of nice. You've already mentioned protective equipment. I didn't want to assume that everybody knew kind of the types of workwear that people have to wear to keep you safe on a construction site, but we have 5 points of personal protective equipment. So high vis, hat, glasses, safety shoes and gloves as well, and that's where everybody working a construction site, and that's really common across the industry, and it keeps everybody safe essentially on our sites. So I've got a quick task, and I know that we can't chat about this, but I want you to, if you're adults and your teachers in the class, if you could pair off people in the class or in small groups, whatever works best. And I want you to, each group, to take a pen and a paper, and I want you to write down as many construction roles as you can think of. So go, really. We're going to give you, I'm not even going to give you 5 minutes, I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Is that okay? So I'm going to sit here in silence for 3 minutes.
Get that timer on. Okay.
You could do it on the board if you prefer, whatever works best for you. I've just thought actually, or you could start writing them in the chat even. If you're suggesting them in class and throwing them out to your teacher, maybe your teacher could be typing them in the chat, because I assumed we'd be able to talk to one another, but sadly we can't. So maybe do pop them in the chat as you think of them. I've mentioned a few already. Give you another minute or so. Anything coming through on the chat there, Michelle?
Yes, we've got from Manor Academy again.
Hold that thought, don't suggest them yet.
Okay, all right.
I'll share in a minute. I just wanted to hear that there was some stuff coming through. Fabulous.
Definitely.
Right. Right, 10 more seconds, give you a bit of a countdown. See if you can start putting things into the chat if your group hasn't already. And then I'm going to ask Michelle in a moment to read a few out to us.
Loads coming in now.
Oh, fabulous. Right. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop.
Great. Okay.
Would you read us some out, please?
Big breath. Yes. So manager, bricklayer, foreman, planners, architects, hod carrier, electricians, plumber, tiler, plumber again, roofer, cement layer, electrician. Oh, we had that. Painter and joiner.
Amazing.
Yeah, loads.
Amazing.
There.
Thank you, everyone. Keep putting them in if you want while I carry on. I'm going to move forward because I'm just a little bit conscious of time. So these are just some, and you've probably mentioned lots of those. Now, they tend to fall into two groups, the jobs on a construction site. So you'll tend to get kind of trade or craft, what used to be called kind of craft careers. So all the stuff to do with the hands-on roles in terms of the physical building. So some of the roles that you've mentioned, like painting and decorating, plastering, plumber, and then the more management related roles and technical roles, the architectural roles, the design roles, the planner that we mentioned before, and people usually decide to go one route or the other. Sometimes people start off in the trade roles and enter into the industry, move on to trade roles, and then perhaps later on in their career they might move on to more management and technical roles. Right, I've got another task for you all now. I'm rushing forward, apologies. What I want you to do, I'm going to show you in a moment a list of roles, and they're a mix of trade roles and technical roles. And I'm going to show you also a list of salaries, and they're mixed up, they don't match. So I'm wondering how to do this. I think maybe it might be best teachers at the front of the class, maybe on a board or a flip chart perhaps. I'll show you the list and you can see. So you can see here the roles on the left that I've selected. And then we've got some salaries on the right. And they're mixed up, so they don't, bricklayer doesn't match to the £60,000. So this is salaries per year, salaries per annum. So this is a list of salaries that people might earn per year. And I want you, teachers, perhaps to write these roles down on your board at the front of the class if you can, or in a flip chart. And then I'm going to give the students 5 minutes. You're going to have to agree as groups which salaries match which roles. And if you've got any questions about the roles, can you pop them in the chat, please? And Michelle, would you share those?
Absolutely.
I was told you'd all be very interested in salaries because after all, lots of people are. People want to know what they might earn when they move into a career. So I thought that this would be an interesting activity to share with you. So we're going to give you till 11:36. I'm going to give you quite a few minutes for this.
5 minutes for this then.
Yeah, I'm just conscious that teachers have to write down all these things on the board.
I'll take 5 minutes to do it myself.
Yeah, I mean, if you're, when teams are ready, if they think they've finished, again, let us know in the chat. If we finish earlier, then that's fine, we'll move on.
Okay, we have a question. What is a document controller?
I knew that one would come in. Great question. Thank you for that. So a document controller is a little bit like, I always call them the librarian of the site, which doesn't help you. But they are, so we have a lot of documents, electronic documents, paper-based documents, mainly electronic. The types of documents we handle a lot of are drawings, so technical and design drawings. So for everything that's done on site, there's a drawing related to it. And there's hundreds, if not thousands, of these drawings. So we have to control the flow of that information. They get revised and edited, and the document controller's job is to really make sure they're saved in places and that we control the different versions. So when anybody wants a drawing, the document controller knows at any point in time what the recent version is, because we do change designs sometimes. So they're a bit like the gatekeeper of all the drawings and the documents for the site, and everybody will use the systems that they put in, filing systems, in order to access the drawings and the documents.
That sounds really important.
It's essential.
Yeah.
It's essential. Yeah, so it's an office-based job, but it can be done remotely. But it's different than like a general administrator or an office administrator. It's kind of one step beyond that.
So you don't have to be on site all the time. That one can be done from an office.
No.
You don't have to start at 7.
I don't know, probably not, maybe 8. Can you let us know in the chat if you are not ready to move on with the answers, if you need another minute?
There's a lot of discussion going on about.
Oh, good. I hope there is. You can score yourself in a minute when I put up the answers. Right, we're moving on. Are you ready? Otherwise, we're not going to have any time for questions and answers. So I'm going to put up the answers and you're going to have to score yourselves. So, ta-da! So there you go.
Ooh.
So score your team effort, and then perhaps if we could save any questions about salaries, because I've got a couple of other slides to do with salaries. Now, this information is taken from this website here. It's an amazing website. I'll show it you in a moment. So I'll just give you a chance to score yourselves. Right, so hopefully you're all happy that you got some answers right. Again, if you've got any questions, let's leave it for a little while because I'm going to come on to talk about salaries a bit more. But I just wanted to quickly share with you this site. So it's called Go Construct, and it is run by the Construction Industry Training Board. And it's a really, can you see that? Michelle, can you see that? Fabulous. So in here, you can browse all the jobs. It tells you how to apply for each job and kind of gives you tips. So if we go to here, it's got a filtered by the alphabet. So you can look at, say, a general construction operative. That's someone that might enter the industry doing general labouring to support trades. It tells you the salary, how many hours a week. It tells you what types of courses there are available. It's really, really, really useful website for finding out all about different roles in construction in a little more detail. But I'm just going to come away from that now. I'm sure these slides will be shared with you so you can have a look at that website at your own leisure. I'm going to move forward. Also in the slides, I've took all these figures from that Go Construct website, so you can see there's quite a lot of variation in different jobs in construction, and quite a lot of variation in, you know, salaries as well. And there's hundreds of jobs, and so quite often people see people in high vis and think everybody does the same on a construction site. Everybody's got a unique role, and you know, and have chosen kind of what they prefer to do or what they want to get into. They'll have entered the industry in different ways as well, and I'll come on to that. So they're trade-based careers, I've listed a few there, office-based careers, I've listed a few there. Again, I'm not going to dwell on this too much because it's all on that Go Construct website, and we'll send you the information. Entering the industry. Now, I don't know how much you know about how to kind of get into construction. So there are lots of different ways to kind of get your foot on the through the door, essentially. But nearly everybody on our sites and on many other construction sites needs something called a construction skills certification scheme card. So there's a little picture there about what one of those cards looks like. Essentially, you have to sit a bit of a multiple choice test, and it's all about health and safety to make sure that you understand the health and safety requirements and how to keep yourself and your colleagues safe on a construction site. And there are different cards depending on the different careers. And if any of the schools wants to know a little bit more about CSCS cards, and chat about the types of questions that come up on health and safety or delve a bit deeper, just let us know and we can go into that. But everyone in a construction site will have one of those. Now, some people will have done a work placement, whether they're at school or at college, to get a taste of a construction. Some people might choose to go on and do an apprenticeship. Some people will do a full-time course at college, and some people will not go into study, they'll go straight into work, and generally they'll either be employed directly by someone or they'll register with an employment agency. So they're a bit like an organisation that take your details and they find work for you. So again, if anybody wants us to follow up their session with a little bit more detail around these routes into construction, we can do that. But typically I wanted to mention some entry-level roles, so the types of roles that many people who haven't worked in the sector before might do first to get their foot in the door. It might be landscaping work, working with a landscaper, so that might be creating the gardens or planting trees or improving the outside space of the construction project. General labouring, so supporting the electrician or supporting the bricklayer or supporting the groundwork company, you know, helping them out essentially with some general tasks. It might be the gate person, so we've always got security and somebody on the gate. It's quite an important job, the gate person job, because they keep a log of all the deliveries. They make sure sometimes the delivery, the offloading and the unloading is done safely as well. And there's cleaners roles, catering roles. So these are some very kind of entry-level roles for people that might have come straight out of school perhaps and not got any experience, and then usually people in those roles will go on to do other roles once they get a little bit more experience. So I feel like we've whizzed through there and there's been a little bit of rushing, and I apologise for that. I hope the presentation has been insightful and interesting. I hope you enjoyed the tasks, and we've got about 5 minutes now. If people want to, if having any comments or want to ask any questions, can you do that through the chat function, please?
Thank you, Joy. That was really interesting, thorough presentation. And one of the questions you had earlier was exactly how much do builders get paid? So you've covered that. Yeah. Another one that we've got from earlier on in the session was how do you deal with pollution? So I think, yeah, I think that's going to be more about the stuff that you create on site. Yeah, so try to minimise that.
Yeah, so typically on a construction site when we're building it, there's risk for pollution in a number of different ways. We use diesel fuel on site for operating the large machinery. And if that's not managed right and stored right, or if there are any accidents, you can have diesel spillage from small quantities to you know, worst case scenario, larger quantities. We have spill kits all over the site and people trained to manage spills, and then we dispose of that waste as hazardous waste. It doesn't happen very often, to be honest. Other pollution might be related to things like asbestos. So if we're stripping out a building or demolishing a building, there's different wastes that come from that, and asbestos is quite a high risk environmentally. It can cause problems with health if it gets out into the air and the environment, so we manage that really closely. There's a lot of legislation around asbestos disposal, so that's another significant risk. And then other risks are usually related to the actual site and where it is. So is it next to a river? Has it got protected species in the trees or the habitats nearby, and managing the risks associated with that. So that's not pollution as such, but it's managing the risk to the green and what we call the green and blue environment, the water courses and ecology and habitats nearby. But I hope I've answered that question there. Is there any more, Michelle?
Definitely. Yeah, we've got one come through. Can you train? So you did talk about obviously how you can move from one role to another when you're on site. Can you train to be a bricklayer or a plasterer while working as a general labourer? Are those sorts of things you can do?
Oh, that's quite an interesting question. It depends how you're employed. So if you're employed through an agency and you're doing general labouring and you want to move into plastering, you probably do night schools. So you might go to college to do some learning in your own time. If you're, however, employed through a company and they see that potential in you, then they might train you up. They may pay for you to be released from your work and go and study in the daytime. Alternatively, you could look at an apprenticeship option, which is earning while you learn, essentially. So you might be doing a labouring role and then decide to take up an apprenticeship, but then that would be movement into a different role. That would be an apprenticeship role. So it really just depends how you're employed at that point in time and what opportunities for training and funding are available for you through your employer or in other ways. So there isn't one size fits all, but if that's unique to a particular person, we'd usually advise and give one-to-one advice on that.
Fab. Thank you very much. We've got nothing else coming through, and it is 1:45. So I just want to say thank you again. Thank you so much, Joy. That was a really interesting presentation, and thanks for sharing all those stories. And we'll definitely want to look at that drone video again and see if we can play that all in one go, because it looks like a really interesting
there's lots of
view of the
videos I
site.
can share.
Yeah, fab. And thank you everybody for coming, for sending through your messages in the chat, for asking all your questions. I hope you found it interesting. We've had a few comments to say that you have, so that's great. We've got a Learn Live broadcast this afternoon, in case you're interested in finding out more about other roles in sustainable sectors, and there's videos from employers such as Avanti, Balfour Beatty, Stockport Council, and many others, and that's from 1:30. So just want to highlight that to the audience. And you can keep up to date with the rest of the event and everything else that we've got going on at Bridge GM with GMACS.co.uk, and on Twitter and Instagram at your GMACS. So please do follow those if you're interested in finding out more about our events. But thank you again, Joy. Incredibly interesting.
Pleasure.
And I'm sure we'll have you on again in the future, because it's such a ISG do such great projects. So yeah, just fantastic, and thank you very much everyone for attending and for your questions. All right, see you all soon.
Bye everyone.